Welcome to Travel Secrets with me, Tanya Rose, the podcast sharing wisdom for fellow travellers. Each week, I ask my guests to reveal their 6 travel secrets and the trips and holidays that uncover them. My guest today is the wonderful skincare global pioneer, Liz Earle. Liz is a hugely respected voice in the beauty industry and has written over 35 books on beauty, nutrition, and well-being. She co-founded her iconic brand in 1995, and in 2013, she set up Liz Earle Wellbeing, which covers a blend of wellness, health, travel, and beauty through its website, magazine, YouTube, and podcast. What Liz doesn't know about wellness and traveling is not worth knowing about. And I'm sitting opposite her today on her return from Kenya and thinking I'm next to a teenager. Liz and I have known each other for many, many years, and I've sent her on some fabulous retreats, which I'm sure we will hear more about in this episode. Welcome, gorgeous Liz.
Oh, thank you. My gosh, you've got very nice lighting, Tanya. I think that's what it is.
Well,
lighting is key.
No, you still look like a teenager and always have done. Before we get into your travel secrets, perhaps you could just tell us a little bit about yourself and how travel has impacted who you've become.
Oh my gosh, it really has. So I started life as a beauty journalist in my early 20s. I'm now 60, so, nearly 40 years ago. And back in the day, beauty journalists were sent all over the world. There were bigger budgets. It was a different thing. So I traveled. I went to LA, to the Max Factor Hollywood Museum. We used to get, sent on private jets to Geneva, to Swiss clinics, just to have lunch. I went to Morocco, to Essaouira, to visit hammams, went to spas in the Far East, the rose harvest in Turkey, the camellias with Chanel in the south of France. There was always a bit of travel. I think there wasn't a week that went by without travel. And then I think later, co-founding the beauty company, we were sourcing a lot of botanical ingredients. And that, I think, was where I really discovered my passion, particularly for Africa. Going to developing countries, working with indigenous farmers, harvesters, growers, often women's cooperatives, and seeing what a difference trade made. I remember interviewing Anita Roddick back in the day, and she talked about trade, not aid. And that was something that I really carried through, trying to work with developing countries where our trade makes all the difference to them.
That's amazing. I had no idea you'd actually done all of that in your beauty journalist days.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah.
What fun.
It was a lot of fun. And now, thanks to you and many others, I do go on a lot of retreats and I visit spas, all in the name of research, obviously. But there is a lot out there, and there's a lot particularly happening in Europe with naturopathy and fasting and all sorts of things that we can benefit from. So I do go off a lot and visit places and bring that knowledge back.
And thank goodness you do, because we all get the benefit when we're listening to your podcast and reading your fabulous magazine.
Oh, well, bless you. Well, I've got a new book coming out quite soon, and that has a lot of research, particularly on things like herbs for longevity. So it's all about living well for longer and using a lot of simple techniques, everything from cold showers to intermittent fasting, things that are simple, quick, easy, but above all effective.
And I see you jumping into cold water ponds all the time, which I
do.
am in awe of. I could never do it. I went to Gordonston and I had 5 years of cold showers, and that was enough for me.
Well, I think as a child that might put you off. But, that 60-second micro cortisol spike that we can do in a cold shower every morning, it's really good. But don't do it later in the day. First thing is when you need it to get your energy levels going.
Thank you to Antler for collaborating with us on the launch of Travel Secrets. Antler is the British travel brand for those who travel often since 1914. With over 100 years of travel expertise, Antler is renowned for designing and manufacturing quality luggage. Each suitcase embodies pioneering British design, combining innovation, function, and durability with a lifetime warranty. Explore Antler's latest collection at antler.co.uk. Let's go on to travel secret number 1. What is the number one destination that you think everybody should visit or go to once in their lifetime?
I think the most life-changing one is to go to Kenya, and I've had a home there for more than 20 years. My eldest son lives there. It's an incredibly diverse country. You have beautiful coastline, beaches, sandy beaches, better than the Caribbean, it's in my opinion. You have the Masai Mara with the lions, you have the mountains in the north with elephants, you have the bustling cities of Nairobi and Mombasa. You have remote rural regions where you don't see a soul for days. And the landscape is so vast that you see the curvature of the earth at night and the star blanket above you. And I think what makes Kenya, I suppose, special for me is the people. You meet people who have so little and yet they are so happy and smiley. It really is very humbling, and it gives a huge sense of perspective. I love taking my children there, because they grow up being grateful that there's water coming out of a tap. My God, you can actually drink this, And so it really is putting you back in touch with basic humanity, and people there who have so little, and yet they share their last cup of beans with you because they
That's
have
very
a
grounding.
generous spirit. It's hugely grounding. And, I land back at Heathrow or whatever and see all these sad, angry, annoyed faces and just think, oh my gosh, I wish I could take you to Kenya, because then you could see what hardship really is in so many areas.
I read once about a hotel that you said was a wonderful hotel in Lamu. What was that? I can't remember.
Do you know, I almost don't want to share it because it is one of my secrets, but I will because it's you. So yeah, Peponi Hotel is kind of like almost my second home, and I love it there. I often say if ever I go AWOL, that's where you'll find me. If I
that
go,
definitely
if I go
don't tell
missing.
anyone.
Don't tell anyone that's where I'll be. I just love it, and I love Lamu. It is changing a bit. It's becoming more widely known, but it is, again, very stripped back. It's it's not 5-star Uber luxe. There's no air conditioning, there's no phones in the room, Wi-Fi is a bit dodgy, but it has a special soul to it, and a very special place in my heart.
Is it privately owned?
It's privately owned with family run. Yeah, I think that makes a difference.
Hugely. I go to the Column Door every year and it's the same thing. Family owned. The cupboards don't close, the air conditioning rattles, but it is just so, it's got a soul.
Yeah.
And it really makes a place sing.
Yeah, it really does.
Let's do travel secret number 2. What's the most unexpected experience you've ever had?
I was really taken aback by visiting Japan. I was in Tokyo for work. It was when I had the beauty company, and Kim and I went there. We went to Tokyo, we went to Kyoto, and I think because it's such a culture shock, I felt like I was living in an episode of Blade Runner. And I didn't understand anything. Obviously, you can't even guess the language because it's just a series of kind of shapes and
The
patterns.
signs are all unrecognizable.
And there's no concession at all to the Western world. And I found the food very hard and very alien. It was just an extraordinary, I don't know quite what I was expecting, but I wasn't expecting to feel as though I'd literally landed on the moon, and there was nothing that felt familiar in any way to me.
How long ago was it?
That must have been about 15 years ago. I have to say I didn't enjoy it. I know people who live in Tokyo, who go to Japan, who absolutely love it. I didn't, and I don't particularly want to go back.
It's really interesting because lots of people on this podcast have said it's their very favourite place.
Really?
And I last went there 35 years ago, which was a very long time ago. And I was the only person for the Savoy Group, which is who I worked for, that was a woman. And I went with 6 men and all general managers of hotels.
Yeah.
And the Japanese people in the meetings were literally looking at me as if to say, why are you talking and not writing notes?
Yes.
It was very much that time. I think it's hugely changed. But I found it really tough, and I found the food really difficult because all these live things came, and I was just looking at them.
Jellied eyeballs.
And
That's what they look
green,
like.
mossy drinks and things. But honestly, it's extraordinary how many people just love it. So I think I do have to go back, and we have a lovely hotel there, the Peninsula in Tokyo, which is meant to be amazing. So I am going to have to put that back on my list, I think.
Yeah. Well, maybe I should give it another go, but yeah.
Maybe we'll go together.
That'd be fun.
We should do a wellness retreat.
Well, I mean, my gosh, there's so much wellness. And of course, when you look at longevity, Okinawa is one of the most long-lived places in the world.
And all these onsens are meant to be amazing, these spas. So actually, let's do that. I think that'd be fun. Okay, good. We're going to do that. Travel secret number 3. What's the most overrated travel experience you've ever had?
Oh, gosh, overrated. I had not a great time in Venice. I mean, I do love Venice, although I think it's become a little bit like Disneyland for grown-ups. And I think you have to be quite careful with it. And I remember it was with my first husband, actually, and we stayed at the Cipriani, and it was just so over the top. But I don't know, there was a vibe that it was almost as if I had to really love it because it was really special, and I just kind of didn't. I didn't really get into it. Maybe it was because he and I were going through a difficult time, because it depends, your travel companion matters, doesn't it?
Yeah,
It's
really does.
very influential. Maybe if I go back with a different companion, it might be different, because I do love Venice. And I mean, I spend a lot of time in Italy, and my children are a quarter Italian, so they connect with it. In fact, they're just going for their Italian passports and things at the moment, so they can spend more time there, which would be amazing for them. I think Venice, it comes with a lot of expectations and sometimes doesn't always live up to it, perhaps.
It's a bit like New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
Or Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
Those
It's built into these big things, and you're told that you have to love it, and it has to be really special, and it has to be amazing. And sometimes you have to accept that it just isn't.
Didn't I read that you went on a holiday once that was just so terrible because your son broke his arm or something?
Oh my gosh,
and
yes.
you hurt your hip.
It was probably the worst holiday of my life. We just rented a villa in France, and I had to do a photo shoot. It was for a book that I was doing at the time. And I think on day one of my front teeth, I had veneers on my front teeth, and one of them fell out. So I spent most of the time in the dentist so I could have my picture taken. And my youngest son at the time fell off a swing and broke his arm, and spent most of the holiday in plaster. And we had to try and find a waterproof plaster cover for him so that he could be in the pool. And it was endless hospital visits. Oh, and then that's right. And then they started drilling in the house next door. Because it was a building site. And so actually since then, and this is something that I do recommend to anybody who's renting a property, because we used to do that with the kids when they were small. We would take a house and we would rent it for a couple of weeks in France or in Italy, is always look on Google Maps. I mean, back in the day you couldn't, because then you can see what's near. I mean, we've rented villas in the past where they were right next to a motorway, or because you just can't see, and that the photos on the website don't show that. And you have to drill down and ask all these questions. Will it be quiet? Who are the neighbours? What's the traffic like? Is it under a flight path? All these questions, because when you go away, you're hoping for some R&R.
No, I totally agree with you. Absolutely. And actually, with villas, I think it's also almost worth going through a villa specialist, because if something does go wrong, you can phone them. We went to a villa once in the south of France that had bed bugs when we arrived. And, at least we'd done it through an agent, so we were able to phone, and then they changed it straight away. But I think in that instance, sometimes it is worth going through a specialist.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I've got a friend who has a very large family, and if they go away and if they're renting an expensive property for 2 or 3 weeks, she actually goes. She actually just hops on a quick, EasyJet flight or whatever for the day, goes and looks at it,
and comes
and comes back again before actually, paying all that money.
I think that's a good idea, because time is so precious.
Yeah, and I want it to be special.
Yeah, exactly.
And get there and be pleasantly surprised and not shocked.
Yeah. Buy pneumatic drills next door. Oh, dearie me. Let's do travel secret number 4, and I'm sure you've got lots of wonderful meals and cocktails that you can tell us about, because food and drink is obviously so important to all of us wherever we go. So what is the best meal you've had, or cocktail, or bar?
So many. But there was one actually recently which just blew me away. And it's in Ibiza, and it's called 1742. It's an amazing Michelin star restaurant in an old castle. And I hadn't looked it up or anything. I was taken there. And you go in, and the whole thing, it's complete theatre. And everything from the sommelier who meets you to what you're given, as you check your coat in, and then you go up various flights of stairs to different levels, and there are musicians playing, and every single level has theatre. So we started off on the rooftop, this beautiful view overlooking the harbour as the sun was setting, and, had incredible food. I mean, it really was extraordinary. And then after, I think, course number 3, there was opera singers that came and sang at the table, and then we went downstairs, and there's a whole other restaurant below the roof. Amazing. Where you have a separate table, and the walls are projecting these extraordinary images and holograms that reflect the food that's on the plate. I mean, it's totally immersive. It takes a restaurant just to another level. It was theatre. The food was phenomenal. the staff, it was almost as if they were all acting parts of, we are going to be the very best possible entertainers and service providers that you could possibly imagine. I mean, it was completely mind-blowing. And, if ever I got the chance to go back there, or if anybody needs somewhere out of this world, super, super special.
That sounds amazing. I'll definitely put that on my
in
list.
Ibiza. Yeah.
Where did you stay when you were in Ibiza?
Well, I actually stayed in a club. So I have a new, slightly younger boyfriend who's very into clubbing. And we'd not long met when he talked about clubbing. And I made the flippant remark. I said, "Oh, I've never been clubbing." And he said, "What, never?" And she couldn't believe it. And I said, "Well, no," because he used to be a DJ promoter. And he said, "Well, you've been to Ibiza, obviously." I was like, "No, never been to Ibiza." He said, "Right, we're going." So he booked 4 nights doing the end of season parties. So we stayed at this hotel that's also a club called Ushuaïa. I mean, it's crazy. I've never experienced anything like it in my life. And I had to have a whole new wardrobe. So my daughters took me shopping. There's this crazy shop on the King's Road called Ad Hoc. And we went there and they dressed me in like sequin boob tubes and spray on leopard print trousers and neon mesh. And I had this one dress that I wore one day. I did actually put a picture on my Instagram. It was made of little plastic metallic discs and not much else. And I had to be clipped into it. My guy had to clip me in using a pair of tweezers because the fastenings wouldn't work properly. It was the most sort of out-of-body, surreal experience.
Did you enjoy it?
Absolutely loved it. We're going again this year.
That's brilliant. That's so exciting.
And then as a contrast to the kind of clubbing, he was the one who'd actually booked 1742, the restaurant, which was completely opposite. So I was wearing something very sophisticated.
Did you actually wear the right clothes to the clubs? Was that what everyone else was like?
It was. And it was very age inclusive. I didn't feel at all out of place. And it was an amazing vibe. Everybody was just there to have a good time, to smile and dance and
But you do look like a teenager, as I said at the beginning. So you absolutely can get away with it. I'm not sure that I would be able to be clipped into a disc dress. But anyway, maybe I shall ask my husband to do so. Let's do travel secret number 5. What is the best insider travel secret that you have? And I'm sure you have so many about wellness and about traveling. So one doesn't have to be enough. Tell us whatever you think.
Oh, gosh. Okay, so at home, because I do travel quite a lot, I have a small chest of drawers in my bedroom, and it's my travel chest of drawers. So in it, I have everything to hand that I need to take with me. So I always prioritize sleep. I have to sleep well wherever I am. So I have black duct tape for covering up those little annoying red or green LED lights in hotels and fire exits that they seem to put everywhere these days. I have industrial strength earplugs and eye masks and my little travel pillow. I have a little tempura molded travel pillow with a silk pillowcase that goes in my travel bags, and my lavender oil and all of that. So I know that wherever I am, I can make my hotel room or wherever I'm staying feel like home and tell my brain that it's going to get a good night's sleep, even if I'm, crossing time zones or whatever. And I have all my little travel skincare and everything in sachets, little mini bottles of stuff. I have my own tea bags. I've got to travel with my own organic Earl Grey tea. So I have a little tea caddy that's got my tea bags in it. So it's all there. So literally when I have a trip, I just open the drawer and just sort of decant everything that's in there into the bottom of my suitcase. And then I know that I'm covered and I've got the stuff that will at least see me through.
I agree. Tea bags. I cannot go anywhere without my normal tea bags because they have these Lipton tea bags wherever you go in the world that taste of nothing. Yeah. And so I always take my PG Tips. I don't take organic Earl Grey. PG Tips come everywhere
you've just got to have, and actually sometimes, and it was actually a makeup artist. I was doing a series for the BBC. We were on location in this sort of porter cabin for about 9 days. And she said to me before I arrived, because we did a sort of recce and a rehearsal, and then there was a break. And she said, "Oh, when you come, bring your own mug." And I thought, oh my gosh, don't the BBC provide mugs these days? And she said, no, you will feel so much better first thing in the morning when you're in the makeup chair if you have your own mug. Oh. And she was so right. And I've carried that advice with me. And when I travel, particularly if I'm going away for any length of time, like if I'm going to one of the spas or the retreats where I'm, away for a couple of weeks, I will take my own mug and it does make you feel better.
Don't you also print out your name and address and put them in every suitcase
That was after losing my luggage. So basically what happened was I was on one of the first flights out of Terminal 5 when it opened, when British Airways opened. And I don't know if you remember, but there was a massive luggage meltdown. And we landed, I had all my kids with me, we were skiing. And so we had huge amounts of kit, you know, all the ski wear and the boots and the goggles and the helmets and everything. And as we landed in Zurich, the pilot said, you know, ladies and gentlemen, the good news is we've landed in Zurich. The bad news is none of the luggage was loaded. And I remember saying to my husband at the time, that's so funny. I thought he said none of the luggage had been loaded. And he said, yeah, he did. So we had 2 weeks of the skiing holiday with the family with no kit. And actually British Airways did kit us out in the end because they had to. And I remember speaking to the insurance guys and saying, listen, this is going to cost a fortune because
it's not cheap.
And we're up a mountain where there's very few outlets and I have a family to clothe. You know, are we going to be able to reclaim this? And they said, well, yes, because if you were on a beach, we'd give you a sarong and a pair of sandals. But you're obviously up a mountain expecting to ski. And it was strange because I had a girlfriend who was staying in the same hotel, very different from me, but she lent me her wardrobe. And it's very weird when you have to wear somebody else's clothes. Didn't feel right at all. It was very strange. I mean, she looks amazing and glamorous, but me and her clothes didn't kind of work. But anyway, as a result of that, and we lost our luggage and we thought we'd lost it forever because they couldn't sort it out. British Airways sent all the luggage, went in lorries to Italy.
Oh my goodness.
Where they then sorted it and sent it back to their owners. And eventually, you know, we got a few of the bags, but most of them followed us in the UK. And about 3 months later, one of my suitcases, I had a call from a baggage handler at Heathrow saying, we've opened this case and it has your name and number inside it. Is this yours? I said, absolutely. So since then, I have laminated cards, 2 of them, one on the outside pocket and one on the inside of the bag, with my name, address, phone number. I mean, almost, you know, like GPS coordinates. This is how you can find me if you find this bag.
No, but it's a very, very good tip. Honestly, I think it's
And I also spread things out because what happened when we got our luggage back was because everyone had their own case, one case would arrive. So my youngest son, of course, he was the one that got his case. He was the one that needed it least. So now if I'm traveling and say with 3 bags, I will spread, you know, I'll put, you know, pants, socks, nightdress in each bag. So if one doesn't make it,
everybody will have one.
You know, you'll have something. Yeah. You'll have something to get you through the night and the next day.
Let's talk about wellness actually and retreats and things because you've done so many of those. I mean, there are very different retreats and wellness places to go. What is your take on that?
I love the fact that wellness is coming to the fore for travel because it's lovely to go on holiday and to have a nice time and rest and relax. But I think these days time is precious. And if you can get something extra out of it, you know, if you can learn a skill or you can really get some time to have amazing treatments or to meditate or to walk on a beach, perhaps with a group. And I've loved going to booking a Willemy clinics, for example, in Germany and Marbella. I mean, they are the grandfathers of fasting. And it's just so beneficial. I really want to, you know, put it in my diary to go every year if I can, because it's an incredible rejuvenation for the body. And we know that controlled fasting triggers this process called autophagy, which increases our cell activity. It's very good for our mitochondria, which is all to do with longevity. And if we're going to live well for longer, you know, we need to hack into these health techniques. So I think there are different types of spas. That is quite hardcore, but I highly, highly recommend it. And then I've really enjoyed going to some of the spas in Italy. I think Italy have some of the best spas. There's spas just outside Rome, for example, where you can do slightly less extreme fasts.
Is that Palazzo Fuji?
Yeah, I love Palazzo Fuji. And they have an amazing gym. They have a huge ballroom, which they converted into their gym. I mean, it's the grandest gym I think you will ever see. And so often in hotels, the gym is tucked away in some dingy basement and there's no natural daylight and it's just full of like really, really heavy duty boy weights, you know, and it's all very macho and testosterone fueled. Whereas this is hugely like with massive, great big windows overlooking beautiful parkland. And you just want to be in there. You want to get your running shoes on and go and stay in the gym and work out. And they've got amazing trainers too.
Don't they have a machine that you can fly or something?
It's off balance, yes. Yeah. So it's a huge platform that moves. So you have to do all your exercises being slightly destabilised. So it's really good for your core.
Oh, that's what it is. It looked like you were flying
Oh,
machine.
And there's that other machine. Yes, no, you're absolutely right. There is that one where you fly too.
So let's do travel secret number 6. What memory do you have from a holiday or a trip that is still poignant with you now?
I had this thing where I said to my children, when they reached the age of 20, I would take them anywhere in the world for a week. But there were 2 conditions. One was, you have to share a room with me. And the second is, there's no tech, so there's no distractions. Doesn't quite work so well these days because everybody is all teched up, but this was starting a while ago. And my eldest son decided that he wanted to go and see the Northern Lights. And so we flew to somewhere in Sweden, and then we got a little internal flight way up into the Arctic Circle. And I remember we were told that it's extremely cold. I mean, that doesn't even cover it. Basically, I think we were wearing 9 layers of clothing and we were still cold. And we went up in a chairlift one night with these Arctic polar expedition sleeping bags, and we lay on the ice and we looked up at the stars and we saw the Northern Lights, and it was just the two of us. And we really connected, we really bonded on that trip. And I highly recommend it, that if you have the opportunity, it doesn't have to be some grand extravagant travel trip. It could be just a week away in a B&B somewhere, or camping or whatever. But just to have that one-on-one time, because I've got 5 children, so the opportunity to have a week with just one of them, it's been the only time in our lives when that's happened. It created really special memories.
That sounds wonderful. And actually, I've never seen the Northern Lights. I saw them in Scotland when I was at school up there. And actually, it's on the same level.
Yeah.
But I would love to do that, where you actually are in Finland or wherever you went
and
to
we
see
did
them.
sledging and ate reindeer meat and rode on horseback through the snow looking at moose. I mean, it was
Sounds
it was really a good
I
trip.
hope the other 4 had equally great trips. I'm sure they did.
My eldest daughter decided that she wanted to go to the Maldives, so we stayed in a little hut on the water. And actually, I was really pleased to go there with her. She was very young at the time, and she'd met her husband, or husband-to-be, and they wanted to get married basically when they were still at uni. So my main ambition of that holiday was to persuade her not to get married. So it probably wasn't the most relaxing holiday for her, because every morning I woke up with this thing in my head, I've got to talk to Lily about this. Anyway, she did delay it a few years. But she is now still very, very happily married to the same man that she met. I think she was 15 when they met.
But you succeeded in postponing it for a few years.
I did postpone it, and we did have a very lovely holiday together.
Lovely. Very lovely. So finally, I asked you to share a personal photograph that sums up travel and holidays and how you think about travel. And can you tell us about the photograph and show us the photograph?
Yeah, so I have the photograph here. It was actually taken, it's not particularly glamorous.
That's wonderful.
It is of me with a group of women in southern Sudan, and it was on a botanical sourcing trip, and it was in this remote region with these incredibly hardworking women. And it does tend to be often in African communities the women who do it all. You know, they bring up the children, they are the harvesters, the growers, they're the ones who get the firewood and fetch the water and cook and clean and, build the houses. And the guys often don't really do an awful lot. And there was just this extraordinary sense of community, even though we didn't speak each other's languages. They could sense that I was there as kind of part of the sisterhood, really keen to support them and help and learn. And it was just such a lasting memory. And it just, I think, reinforced for me the fact that we have the ability through our travel and through where we choose to spend our money and who we choose to support to do so much good in the world. And we need to remember that, our lives are just an accident of birth, that we happen to live here in this very comfortable environment, and we are very privileged. And we mustn't forget those who are just a few thousand miles away. You can reach them in a few hours, and their lives are so extraordinarily different. And we absolutely have an obligation to support them in whatever way we can.
What a wonderful sentiment. I absolutely love that. And what a great way to finish. And that is the most beautiful photograph. Liz, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a joy and a pleasure to hear your travel secrets.
Thank you for having me.